What happens when you build the single most talented team in the league by a pretty large margin and then surround them with a coaching staff that doesn't reinvent the wheel, but simply builds an offense and a defense that complements the skill set of that superbly talented roster? You win a Super Bowl. And not only do you win, you dominate. And the craziest thing about it is there's no reason that this team shouldn't be able to run it back. They still have the quarterback. Jalen Hurts might be flawed. I wouldn't trust him in a McVay or Shanahan offense, but he's perfect for Sirianni's offense. His ability as a runner allows the team to use him for a lot of read options and design quarterback runs. And he throws a great deep ball, so there's a lot of passes downfield. And that works really well for Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, who are incredible at winning at the catch point. But they're also superb after the catch, so the team runs a lot of RPOs to take advantage of this while still not asking Hurts to make true progressions, just single read concepts. This system might seem one-dimensional, but it's effective because of the sheer strength of their run game. Lane Johnson had the best season of his career. Even though he's 35, that was the best season of his career. Only allowed 1 sack. Jordan Mailata might be the strongest player in the entire league. The former rugby player is adjusting very well to the NFL. And the interior should still be very good, even after losing Mekhi Becton. And then you have one of the most talented players of the past decade running behind those guys. Saquon is so evasive, and he's so smart and patient while having unbelievable contact balance. Putting that behind the best O-line in the league will always go well, especially when you have a quarterback that can threaten defenses with the run. That normally forces teams into one-high looks, and when you only have one high safety, that's when A.J. Brown will carve you up. That's when Devonta Smith will carve you up. This offense puts you in such a bind because they're just so talented everywhere. It's pick your poison. Overcommit to the run game? Okay, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, eat you alive. Eat you alive because A.J. Brown's one of the best wide receivers in all of football, and Devonta Smith is maybe not in that elite tier, but he's pretty close. Like, he's in that next tier right after. You got to pick your poison. You can't have a safety high over both of them, so you have to have 2 high safeties. But then you don't have enough defenders in the box. Lane Johnson is going to completely maul your defensive line, and Saquon Barkley is going to take a run to the house. There isn't really an answer. There really isn't. Because yes, Jalen Hurts is playing the most important position in the entire sport, and Jalen Hurts might be flawed in some areas. I'm not going to deny that. But he is so good at what they ask him to do, it doesn't really matter. If he can't make full field progressions, but he never has to make full field progressions, who cares? Is Tom Brady a bad quarterback because he can't run? Jalen Hurts fits this offense perfectly. A.J. Brown complements Jalen Hurts perfectly. And Saquon adds a whole nother dimension where you can't really force them to leave their comfort zone. And defensively, it's pretty similar in the sense of it's all about skill sets, right? A guy like Cooper DeJean fell really far in the draft. Fell into the 2nd round, even though he was clearly a great player, because he's not a man coverage guy. But if you're a defensive coordinator like Vic Fangio, you're running a lot of cover 6, and you're not running that much man coverage, you don't really care that much. Yeah, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, I'm a little bit concerned because they didn't play every down in college. Well, what if we just bring them into the NFL and then we don't have them play every down? What if we rotate them in the NFL too? Then what? And then we completely dismantle you. Yeah, okay, that means we're going to have to stay deep on the defensive line. Well, it's easy to stay deep on the defensive line if teams are going to keep letting guys like Nolan Smith fall. You know? Like, you got to give Howie Roseman all the credit in the world because when everyone else is trying to play 40 chess, he's just playing simple checkers. That's all it takes. Everyone else is making it way too complicated, And Howie Roseman is taking advantage. Got to give him a lot of credit for that. And that's how they built such a strong defense, because they had an idea as to how they want to run this team, and they just got guys that fit that system. Vic Fangio's system is all about cover 6. That means you want a lot of zone coverage guys. Quinyon Mitchell is a very good zone coverage guy. And in his rookie year, he showed it. The nickel, Cooper DeJean, I talked about him. He could defend the run really well, and he could play zone coverage really well. And he was great in his rookie year. The safety duo has 2 smart and rangy safeties to top this secondary off. Because when you're running cover 6, one of these guys is responsible for a full half of the field. So you better have rangy safeties up there. Oh, they can't defend the run overly well. Well, you're not lowering them into the box. You're running cover 6. It's all about just understanding the system. And then when you are able to land a gem like Zach Bond, who was absolutely incredible for them last year, coming from being a special teamer with the Saints, now one of the best linebackers in football, great in coverage for them, you find yourself in an even better spot. Nakobe Dean was solid, but they also were able to draft Jahad Campbell in the first round, who is the best linebacker prospect I've ever evaluated. So yeah, that was a steal. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up taking over for Nakobe Dean, not because I think Dean's bad, but because Jahad Campbell is really, really damn good. On the D-line, I mentioned it. Jalen Carter is unbelievable. He is a one-of-one player when he's at his best. And you don't see him when he's at his worst because he just rotates off. Because they are deep enough. They have Jordan Davis, who they can put out there, maybe the fastest 335-pound person ever. And then they have guys like Moro Ojomo. They have Byron Young. They have guys they're able to rotate in, right? At the edge, it's a similar thing. Nolan Smith is really damn good. Jalen Hunt is really good. Like, I'm excited to see both of those guys play. And they're even better when you're able to rotate in Josh Uche. They're even better when you're able to keep fresh legs on the field. D-line is really the only spot where they're going to rotate guys a lot. But don't get me wrong, they have depth everywhere else, right? They have Adoree Jackson backing up in their corner room, right? They have Eli Ricks, a young player that I'm a fan of coming off the bench. In the linebacker room, I mentioned Jahad Campbell and Nakobe Dean potentially fighting for one of the linebacker spots. But then let's say they don't have the option to put either of them out there for whatever reason. Let's say they get hurt. I like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. too. So this defense is more talented than every other defense. They fit the scheme perfectly, and they're also really damn deep. It makes sense why they won the Super Bowl, guys. It's not rocket science. They're a great team, and the coaches know how to operate a scheme that complements those absurdly talented players. When you have a vision in mind, then you're able to kind of ignore certain weaknesses and really just look at the positive of guys. And then you build a Super Bowl champion. And it's very possible, dare I say, it's extremely likely that this team runs it back this year. Let's look at the schedule and see how likely that is, though. Philly is really good in a lot of different areas, so if you're a team that's weak with anything specific, hopefully you're not playing against Philly, because Philly will exploit weaknesses. And that's going to be a trend throughout this schedule. 2 seed in the NFC, 12 wins. Their schedule is difficult, but they are also just a great team, so I think they'll be fine. 2 seed is still a very good position. They're going to beat a lot of teams really big, such as Dallas, who has maybe the worst run defense I've ever seen. None of those guys are good at defending the run. That includes Micah Parsons, who's a great pass rusher, can't defend the run well. You have Saquon Barkley, you have the best offensive line in the league. Yeah, Saquon's going to go off for like 300 yards here. Like, it's not going to be close. Philly's going to win in dominant fashion week 1. Week 2, I do think KC remembers how that last matchup went in the Super Bowl. It didn't go too well. And I know they're going to try and fight for revenge or whatever, but I also think it's going to be early in the season. KC is still trying to kind of bounce back from that. I think KC is playing against a really tough team in week 1 with the Chargers. The Chargers run the ball well. They are going to play a physical football game. Meanwhile, the Eagles are going to have a very easy week 1 and then come off a mini bye. I just think the Eagles are going to be more well-rested and kind of beat them with ease, right? Then you have the Rams coming into your stadium. I think the Rams could definitely upset them. If you remember that playoff game, it was really close. But the Eagles are on a 2-game winning streak. They haven't lost yet. The game's in Philly. You know that crowd is going to get rowdy. Again, I could see Sean McVay and the Rams doing it, but I could also see that offensive line pushing around that Rams defensive line. I could also see A.J. Brown against that corner room. Who do the Rams have that could guard him? No one. And even if they did, who do they have that could guard Devonta Smith? I just think it's going to be so easy for Jalen Hurts to throw the football here. I'm taking Philly. Now, it is worth mentioning, Kellen Moore did a lot for Jalen Hurts in terms of adjusting to the blitz and being better against the blitz. He's gone now. This Buccaneers game is going to be a true test of how well they could deal with pressure. If they can't respond well, a lot of other teams are going to start to take advantage of that. I think this is going to be a game where they kind of realize, oh, wow, that's something we need to fix. So they lose that one, but then they fix it for week 5 when they play against a really damn good Broncos team who blitz a lot. They do a lot of stuff like that. Pat Surtain should be able to lock up A.J. Brown, but I trust Devonta Smith to have a really good game there. I also think that's a game where Saquon's a good enough player to make plays throughout that against, a good defensive line, but still, I also think that Eagles defense should be able to make plays. It should be a really good game, this Broncos game, because on one hand, it's like Sean Payton is fine dinking and dunking, but on the other hand, you kind of have to score touchdowns. You're playing against such an explosive offense. I'm taking Philly because they're the home team. If Broncos were home, though, different story. Now, week 6, I think the Giants just upset them. It's worth mentioning, last year, both of their games were close, right? Both games between the Giants and the Eagles. This one is a Thursday night game. Giants are home. I think the Giants are going to win one of these two in an upset. I do expect it because they were close games last year. So I'm taking the one where the Giants are home. Week 7, though, they're going to have more week to really turn around. Yes, the Vikings are coming off a bye, but I think after losing against the Giants the week prior, they have to bounce back. They will bounce back, and Brian Flores will throw you off with X and O's. Yes, the Vikings will throw you off with X's and O's on the offense side of the ball, too, with Kevin O'Connell and everything. But at a certain point, Philly's just so talented, I don't think it matters. This is going to be a game where J.J. McCarthy is revealed to be the, pretty much rookie quarterback that he is. Justin Jefferson can do a lot, but I trust the Eagles here. I do. I think they're just so much more talented. This is a game where, the Vikings are a great X's and O's team, but this is going to be a game won by the Jimmys and Joes, right? I think the Eagles are splitting. This is going to be the game where they get their revenge and win big because they're mad that they lost earlier. Then they have a bye. After the bye, they're playing against a Packers team that has certain areas where I'm a little bit worried, such as not necessarily the secondary, but the depth of the secondary. Week 10, this is deeper in the season. Maybe there's injuries throughout that secondary. And even if there weren't, they have a good corner in Nate Hobbs, but they're still starting Keyshawn Nixon as the other outside corner. So, I think that Philly is going to dot them up with Devonta Smith. Because, A.J. Brown on Nate Hobbs, okay, that's a little bit of a struggle. But Devonta Smith on Keyshawn Nixon, you'll throw that every day of the week. Primetime football, Eagles coming off a bye, I trust them to win that. Now, week 11, these are the two most talented rosters in the league. I think that Detroit, with their run game and the play action they could establish, I also think by now the coordinators are better set because, of course, they have 2 first-year coordinators. I think now their coordinators are going to be more adjusted. I think it's either going to be that A.J. Brown has a horrible game or a great game, or maybe it'll be horrible plays and then not. It's tough, right? I think that there's a world where A.J. Brown has a great game and goes off for like 200 yards. I also see a world where A.J. Brown doesn't do anything, but I know one thing for sure, A.J. Brown isn't going to get a ton of volume here. I think he might have huge plays, but I don't see him having more than 5 catches because they're going to be really physical. And I think Devonta Smith isn't going to do much because of the physicality of this Lions corner room. And that's the big thing here. I don't think Devonta Smith is ready for that physicality. I think that's his biggest weakness, dealing with more physical corners. A.J. Brown can, of course, win in that way. But if Terran Arnold is, really rattling him, A.J. Brown could have a really bad day. And this could be a game where, we talked about it, Jalen Hurts kind of has to shift how he plays. The defensive line for the Lions is really good. I think the Lions match up well against them. They're both really talented teams, but I'm taking the Lions going on the road. Now, again, we talked about it. Dallas, their run defense is putrid. I don't think that will be any better at this point. I think the Eagles smoke them. Again, Saquon going for a career high. Whatever, right? Bears, I could see the upset in theory. By now, Caleb should be set up in that Ben Johnson offense. But I also think, again, Philly's just so talented. Yeah, the Bears' offensive line is a lot better. I don't think the Philly pass rush will really dominate here. But I still think that secondary is damn good. I still think they're really well coached. And I still think, yeah, that Bears defensive front isn't bad, but the Eagles are just so good. Right? This isn't really a matchup thing. This is just a better team wins at home situation right here. Then week 14, I think this is a game where having a one-dimensional game plan like the Chargers do, yeah, Justin Herbert's really good, but they don't want to throw the football. This is where it hurts you because Philly is so good all across the board. They're able to stack the box and still say, yeah, our corners can easily match up on your receivers. So we don't mind stacking the box a lot to give you trouble. And they'll do exactly that. And the Chargers won't give them problems because they're all about, oh yeah, we're so good at running the ball, it won't matter what opposing teams do. But that's just not the case because Philly is more talented than you. So I think Philly wins that one. I think Philly beats the Raiders too. I think the Raiders do some things really well, but do they do anything quite as well as Philly? No. Philly is too well-rounded. They're elite at every level. Raiders and Ashton Genty might be good, but I think this is a point where the Eagles are just going to lock in. Now, they play against two really good teams. I think they lose to both of them, right? I think that Washington's really good. I think they could throw the ball well. I think that this might be a team that gives Quinyon Mitchell some trouble. This might be a team that gives Cooper DeJean some trouble. Now, why do I have the Bills winning it over the Eagles? I just think, again, home team. And in a game like this, I think it comes down to the best quarterback. And while I really like Jalen Hurts in that system, I think Josh Allen's the better quarterback. So I have the Bills winning that one. And then Washington, this game, Eagles again fighting for conference seeding. Washington fighting for a playoff spot at this point. Washington's coming off of a mini bye, but I don't think Washington wins both of these games. I don't. I find that to be really unlikely. I think Philly, with their run game, I don't think Washington can answer back to that run game as well as they did last year now that they lost Jonathan Allen. I think Philly's going to be on fire, and I think they're going to win that last one. So, overall, 12-5 record. It could be a little bit better. Maybe you think that they beat the Giants, don't get upset there. Maybe you think that they're able to beat Buffalo, right? But I think generally somewhere from 11 to 14 wins, right? Which, generally safe prediction for last year's Super Bowl champion. I think the Eagles are really good. There's no doubt about that. There's nothing to comment on besides them being the most talented team in the league and likely the Super Bowl favorite. I appreciate you all watching. I'll see you in the next video.